It's March Madness time both for the women and the men. Put your dancing shoes on and let the games begin as college basketball's greatest tournament starts tomorrow with the play-in for. I hate that crap. But anyway, it's a great time to be alive as a sports fan. In the NBA, the Chicago Bulls finished up their West Coast road trip with yet another loss. In baseball, Seiya Suzuki gets injured in the World Baseball Classic, while the White Sox prospect Hagen Smith shows promise on the South Side in starting rotation. And in football, the Bears are broke, and one former Bears quarterback is going to a playoff contending team. That, in a special edition of Old School TV Monday, as the Monday extravaganza of Second City Sports starts now.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one is dragged in the left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! Now Robert Jr., his fourth of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide. Up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Bennington, no chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard.
Wow. Getting what a pass. Buzelis with the fake on the drive.
Uze motions up. They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb throws. Middle of the field. Loveland catch. Breaks away the 30. Loveland 20. Loveland 10. Loveland end zone. Touchdown Bears!
Welcome to this Monday extravaganza edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she, Sidney Brown here. You know it's me. You can look up yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X and Kills Game, IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Oh, boy, this is what happens when you do a live show, folks. You get amped up, but you almost lost your way. We are unapologetically funny, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion, do not 2 hours extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You got to hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get them up on the screen for you. But decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid. I've given LaKeena full powers to give you dumbos to bill and be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to our live game. That's LIVE Live Entertainment game. That's checking us out live in 11 color right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels at 12:23 p.m. Central Standard Time. But as always, much love to the replay game that's checking us out on the replay. Also at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Don't you ever forget our motto when we talk about sports, music, or entertainment. We will always provide.
We'll provide you with some of the best Second City sports as, of course, we'll preview a little bit more college hoops as, look, if you want to go back to listen to our bracket selection Sunday show that aired yesterday, you can go back to that. Got a lot of views, so make sure you guys tell your friends about that. So, but we are going to tell you guys our final four for that one. Of course, Cam Young comes in clutch to win the Players Championships. Blackhawks lose a tough one to Vegas. And are the Bears broke? And after a so-so road trip, the Bulls Tank-a-thon continues as they come back home to face the Grizzlies today, and some interesting happenings. Hope Faye Foster, hope all is well with you as well. And some interesting happenings this week in the NBA this weekend, and so much more. Of course, an old friend and a former Chicago Bears QB is going to a playoff contender, and so much more. But Sid, first, what a time to be alive in sports. You got the World Baseball Classic. I'll be honest, I didn't watch a single minute of that Dominican Republic U.S. game last night. I didn't. I know I should have, but I didn't. But look,
here.
yeah. So yeah. Well, and unfortunately, the Seiya Suzuki injury. Hope we'll have an update on that, because that's where I'm concerned about at this point, and I think Cubs fans are too. And such. But also, I would say, of course, you got the women's bracket. We'll talk a little bit about that too in a little bit here. The women's NCAA tournament. They're about to start this week as well. Their brackets came out yesterday, and also the NIT, because a lot of representation for Illinois teams. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Of course, the men, they'll start going tomorrow with the first 4 games. That's been a lot of fun as well. So what are you looking forward to in these next few weeks coming up with all this great sports action we got going on right now?
Waking up this morning, of course, here in the lovely city of Chicago, we barely had 2.5 inches on the ground, and much love, and hopefully everything goes well to our neighbors up north and in the state of Minnesota and the state of Wisconsin. In the upper peninsula of Michigan, they had around 2 feet of snow, I believe, over the last 24 hours or so. So hopefully everything goes well for those folks as they try to recover from this nasty but quick winter storm. But which reminds me that I was reminded on social media that we are only 10 days away from opening day. Of course, if you're living in the Northeast or the Midwest like we are, it reminds you that warm weather is just around the corner. No, we can't put on our shorts and T-shirts yet, but it reminds you that spring will be springing around the country pretty soon. And I'm definitely looking forward to this baseball season in particular. I'm not going to get into the potential happenings or mishaps of 2027. We'll have plenty of time to get into that, but like you mentioned, well, with the World Baseball Classic going on right now and Team USA doing their thing, they're going to play in the championship game, I believe, tomorrow night. It gets me amped up just a little bit more for opening day now. Taking it home to both of our teams, your Cubs, they're going through it right now with a couple of things with injuries. Despite Pico Armstrong doing very well for Team USA, Seiya Suzuki is injured. Hopefully everything's okay with him. For the White Sox, Hagen Smith, one of the prospects expected to make a difference this year, later on in the year, we think. He had a great game against Kansas City yesterday. Too bad his bullpen couldn't back him up as the White Sox lost, but it doesn't matter. What matters is for the White Sox, as we talked about, building had great positive habits, building that team chemistry, manager Real Venable having actual coaching staff to work within. The White Sox are expected to improve this year, so and also, I love March Madness, the real tournament for us old schoolers. It starts on Thursday, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. So, and of course, you have the NBA and the NHL wrapping up their regular season. So, if I had to rank the events that I'm looking forward to right now, the NCAA tournament, and of course, opening day, which is 10 days away from now.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. LaKeena McGee Sidney Brown with you as we talk about this time of year, a busy time of year here in sports. As it doesn't feel like it, but yeah, we're going to go into spring. The first day of spring officially starts calendar wise later this week. But look, Daniel Palencia has done a great job. I think he hasn't given up a single run on all their rounds with Venezuela, his home country. They face Italy tonight, so if you guys want to check that out, that's going to be on the best one at 7. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting too with all the stuff that's going on. Of course, you have the men's and women's tournament. The women, they just started doing the first 4 themselves. Those games will be on Wednesday. We got the NIT. I know some people say kind of shudder at the NIT, but it's still you get to play some extra basketball if you're a fan of one of these teams. You can actually make an opportunity. I think there are like about 5 schools from Illinois. We got Illinois State. I believe UIC's facing California. I believe Wednesday. So that's going to be a late game out there. It's going to be on ESPN2 out in Berkeley. So all you UIC fans can have to set your clocks and such and I think Illinois State and Bradley, they're in the same part. So if those two soul schools advance, they could probably be on a collision course to face each other in the quarters. That would be funny as hell. And a lot of bragging rights on the Missouri Valley side of that. So that's really cool. You got the Crown, of course, second annual of that tournament out in Vegas, where you get $500,000 to the winner. They haven't announced those teams yet, but I'm sure those teams will be announced. I think the 8 to 9, I think. But of course, you got Cam Smith winning the Players Champ. Cam Young, I should say, winning the Players Championship, coming back from a couple of shots down, making some clutch putts on 17 and 18 to hold off Matt Fitzpatrick to win that tournament. The Blackhawks lost a tough one. They do get to try to rebound against Minnesota tomorrow. That game will actually be on TNT and HBO, streaming on HBO Max. So I think this time of year is really, it's really busy. It's interesting, of course. So I think that's really the great part of sports, is the fact that there's just so much going on. And no matter what you're a fan of, Yannick Sinner won over Indian Wells. I think this is his third time winning there for the men's tennis. So that's a really, I think that all this time of year, I think it's always something for everybody, which makes it very exciting.
Yeah, and like you said, you want more options as a sports fan. We have it now more than ever, especially with streaming and the social media and the internet taking place and growing over the last 25, 30 years. So we have a lot more options to view our sports. But for me, the reason why I ranked March Madness around this time of year as number one is because the first 2 days, you can actually say the first 4 days, but definitely the first 2 days, the Thursday and Friday games, you have games going on from 11 o'clock in the morning until almost 11:30 p.m. at night with compelling sequences. Some years you haven't had as many buzzer beaters as you had in years past, but those are great things to see. Of course, sports gambling has always been a factor. Of course, now more than ever, as many states have legalized it. And of course, like you said, LaKeena, with the golf, for those of you that are fans of golf, you have a couple of major tournaments that are going on right now. Of course, you have the Masters coming up in about 2 weeks or so, and so things are looking up for that sport. And of course, Major League Baseball opening day. Hope springs eternal, as the old saying goes, correct? And so for many teams, especially now with the expanded wild card that came out of the 2020 shortened pandemic season, a whole lot more teams that will have a realistic hope of perhaps reaching the playoffs if they don't win their division. So for me, like I said just a couple minutes ago, opening day is number 2 for me for baseball. Number 1 is March Madness, because you get to sit back and relax, whether you're at the office or you're at home working from home. You can watch the games for 11 to 12 straight hours, and if you don't have anything major to do except for get up and go to the bathroom or go to do some shopping real quick, that's nothing to complain about.
Yeah, and I think that's really the great part about March Madness. I know some people say, "Oh, it's not very productive. There are billions lost in production." But look, you have your pools, you have different ways to watch, either on the computer or on your television or on your phone. So you can still be productive, and look, you can multitask. It's fine. But yeah, so of course, the schedule for those first 4 games have been announced. We'll talk about that later. We'll also tell you about the regional matchups, because the announced teams have been announced for that. And Sid and I will actually have our Final Four as well. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that.
Yeah, so shout out to our guy Brandon Schutz is in the chat. Hopefully everything's well with you and your family, Brandon. Thank you as always for supporting us here on Second City Sports. LaKeena, we got to get wrapped up and ready to go, because we got to go into the NBA. Some interesting things that happened over the weekend, and not all of it involved the Chicago Bulls, but we got to report on the taking Chicago Bulls as they wrapped up their West Coast road trip last week in La La Land, and they'll actually be home this week at the UC for the next several days. And do they have a chance to build some momentum while tanking at the same time? The two doesn't coincide, but we'll get into it. And of course, we'll get to the best and worst from around the association from over the weekend. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. Stick and stay right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGetty, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on this Monday extravaganza edition of Locked and Loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she, Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, again, IG.
We'll dive into some Bulls talk along with the rest of the NBA for this half hour. So if you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Bulls are back in action tonight as they host the Memphis Grizzlies over at the UC after going 2-3 in their West Coast road trip, including being swept by the Los Angeles team, of course, losing to the Clippers on Friday, 119 to 108. Montez did have 18 points. Trey Jones had 21. Giddey also had a double-double as well. Oh, but losing effort there. 28 points for Kawhi and 26 points for Vidic Mathurin off the bench for the Clippers as they hang on to beat the Bulls. And what's interesting here about this Bulls squad is that, look, I think you're seeing exactly what you want to see from this Bulls team. That look, the guys are sitting out, but they're losing. I think that's what people are looking forward to seeing at this point in the season. So we'll see if they can keep it going against Memphis tonight at the UC.
Yeah, a couple of players that actually didn't have bad games, but I wanted to highlight was Leonard Miller. He had 14 points and 8 rebounds in the starting role, replacing Jalen Smith in 36 minutes of action. Of course, Nick Richards, who has been consistent. Some of the stats have stood out in some games, but he's been consistent, especially on the defensive end. But he had 10 points and 8 rebounds in the loss last Friday. He's been playing very well. As I said before, we'll keep saying this from now until the end of the season. Some of these guys that you're looking at on this Bulls team right now, if they're not on the Bulls roster for next year, they'll be on somebody else's team. So, as we said before, this is a tryout for some of the young guys that wants to be on this team next year, or else they'll be on somebody else's team. So, like you said, they're trying to accomplish two things at once: be competitive, which they have been. They haven't been blown out in too many games. They've been competitive, but the Bulls are trying to tank and trying to get a top 5 pick. Good luck with that. But also, too, you had to look at Ron Dillingham, who's been effective for the most part coming off the bench, and of course Colin Sexton, who didn't play in that last game. Yeah, he's been okay. I say C plus B minus average, except for the incident in Brooklyn a couple months ago, giving the rim the bird. But besides that, he's been playing okay, above average. So the Bulls, as we said, their nucleus, as they're trying to build around this team, get it back to playoff contending form, is Mates Brazils, who struggled last Friday, and of course Josh Giddey, who had another triple double. So those two that the Bulls front office is trying to build around, but all this is trying to get the right pieces in, and we'll see what happens this summer. There'll be only a few teams. They're one of the few teams that actually have cap space this summer. We'll see what AK and Mark Eversley do in the coming months.
Going into the Bulls scheduling, they got a busy week this week. They got a lot of home games. Of course, tonight against Memphis, they got back-to-back as two of the best in the East. You got Toronto and Cleveland to finish up the week, so they've got a shot to perhaps maybe, assuming, I don't know if it's a toss-up whether they'll win that game against Memphis tonight, but they're facing two of the best in the East. Are both in the top 6 right now, and I kind of feel like if you're the Bulls, I mean, you want to nobody wants to lose. These teams don't want to lose, especially this late in the season. They're trying to make themselves look, they have to have great performances in order to actually be competitive and such. But again, you want them to lose so that they can position themselves better for the draft. And I think this kind of sets up that way where they could probably go maybe over this week, or maybe they win that game against Memphis tonight and lose those next two to Toronto and Cleveland. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to end up happening, and because of course Memphis, they've been struggling with injuries all year long, and excuse me, they traded away Jared Jackson to the Utah Jazz. Of course, John Moran has been a troublemaker for the last few years, and he's been injured off and on too. So the Bulls have a chance to win this game tonight, and I think they will. But like you said, with Toronto and Cleveland coming in here on Wednesday and Thursday for a back-to-back for the Bulls at home, the Bulls, they will be competitive, but I think they'll lose those 2 games. So we'll see what happens this week. The Bulls should be and will be competitive. I think their best chance to win is tonight against Memphis. I just mentioned their struggles, but Toronto's trying to stay out of that play-in tournament in the East. I know they have taken a little bit of a dip lately, even though they did beat Detroit over the weekend. We'll get to that in a second. And then Cleveland, even though James Harden has been okay for the Cleveland Cavaliers, I still have my issues with them, but they should be motivated enough to beat the Bulls on the road later on this week.
Well, yeah, they had a tough loss too yesterday against Dallas. We'll talk about that in a second here. Now, speaking of yesterday's games, of course, Sacramento, they held off Utah, 41 points for DeMar, season high for him as the Kings beat the Jazz. The tanking bowl, as we call it.
Light the beam.
Yep. And the Knicks got a nice win against Golden State. Jalen Brunson had 30 points. This game was got a chance to watch a little bit of this game yesterday. And Jalen Brunson had 30 points. Of course, again, no Steph Curry, but also happy birthday to Steph. He had his 38th birthday on Saturday. So that was a fun time. And we'll talk about that game against Minnesota on Friday, but in a second here. But yeah, But yeah, tough loss for Golden State. Philadelphia with a nice win against Portland. Quentin Grimes had 31. Giannis had 31 as the Bucks beat the Pacers. Toronto with a nice win, as Sid just mentioned, being Detroit, 34 points from Brendan Ingram. Dallas beat Cleveland thanks to Cooper Flag. He had 27 points. And OKC came back, but they came back to beat Minnesota 116, 103, 21 points with Chet Holmgren. I watched a little bit of this game. This was part of the ABC Sunday afternoon doubleheader. Minnesota had a quick lead, going into halftime. But it was SGA that kind of started that rally by the Thunder, along with Holmgren and 20 out the bench for Isaiah Joe, and also Alex Caruso, our buddy, former with the Bulls, now with the Thunder, 17 points as the Thunder came back to beat the T-Wolves yesterday.
You see, for the Oklahoma City Thunder, it's nice to get some of the young guys back. All started with the SGA return to the lineup following the All-Star break. Chet Holmgren, who was missed the last couple of weeks with various injuries, he returned to the lineup about a week or so ago. You started to see his impact for this OKC front line. And, of course, you mentioned Alex Caruso. His impact in the locker room and on the court cannot be denied. And you saw that last year when they won the title. You saw that again yesterday. So we talked about OKC I'm not going to say not being as motivated throughout this regular season. We all thought that with that hot start they got off to, they're going to win 74, 75 games. No, that wasn't the case. We said it early in the year. We'll still say it again. Long as they get healthy around this time, going towards the playoffs and playing well, they should be okay. Now, the competition is going to be stiff in the Western Conference, but if OKC positions themselves better than what they did early in the year, they'll be okay. On the flip side for Minnesota, as I said, and I'll say it again, if they're consistent and they stay healthy between now and the playoffs, they're going to be a tough out. We're talking about Anthony Edwards, the top 5 candidate for MVP. Julius Randle had a game high 32 points yesterday. Ayo Dosunmu, former Chicago Bull, coming off the bench to help boost that depth off the T-Wolves bench. And don't forget about the Stifle Tower, multi-year defensive player of the year. When Rudy Gobert, he anchors the middle defensively. So Minnesota has a stacked squad. So everybody thinks that OKC is going to run through the West again. Not so fast.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people thought that they would win 70 and just that'd be all she wrote. But look, they've had injuries at various points, and I think if you're them, I think you probably would. This is probably the time that you would want to get those injuries out the way. Like you said, Holmgren came back. He's starting to get a little bit better. So we'll see if the Thunder will have the number 1 seed in the West. That's not a question. But I think look, they're not going to win 70, 75 games. I know people were saying that they were going to, but it's not. But look, this is the ebbs and flows of the long season. So I think folks need to just chill with all that. Now going to Saturday's games, of course, Sacramento upset the Clippers, 27 points for DeMar. He had a nice weekend. This weekend. This Lakers Nuggets game. Well, let's just say, okay, look, the Lakers were up big. Then the Nuggets were up big, and then the Austin Reeves, was fouled. He missed a free throw on purpose. Got the tip in. To tie the game. Go into overtime. It was a Luka show after that. Luka had a couple of clutch shots. 30 points. Reeves had 32. LeBron only 17, but also some big points from Marcus Smart as the Lakers held off the Nuggets in overtime, 127-125. 24 points from Jokic, a triple-double, 16 boards and 14 assists, 20 points off the bench for Tim Hardaway Jr. He hit some big shots as well, but the Lakers did just enough to hang on and win this game on Saturday night.
Couple of observations here. One for the Lakers is obviously Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves has really made a big impact ever since he returned from injury almost a month ago now. So it's obviously those two can play well together. When you have LeBron James along with those other two names I just mentioned on the floor at the same time, it just doesn't work. And people say if LeBron James should come back next year to the Lakers, he should take a 6-man role. He's been starting his whole life. You think he's going to be quote unquote humble enough to take a 6-man role off the bench, even though that's where he is at his career? No, it's not going to happen. So you look in the future of this Lakers team, and also Reeves and Luka Doncic look very well to me. It's up to Ron Pelinka to build out the rest of that roster, but we'll talk about that part down the road. On the flip side for Denver, I'm really worried about them. You mentioned about Tim Hardaway Jr. He's starting to get his stride. As I said in our preview show back in October, that he was going to be a great addition to the Nuggets, and you're starting to see that now. But Jokic is I'm not going to say doing too much, but he has to carry that squad because Jamal Murray, first time All Star, but how much does he have left for a playoff run? Aaron Gordon's been gone for over half the year due to various injuries. I know Christian Brown has been injured off and on this year. Cam Johnson, looks like he's finally starting to find his stride a little bit, but he's been injured off and on all year. If the Denver Nuggets have their supporting cast healthy enough come playoff time, I think they'll still be dangerous, but those other players I just mentioned got to take the load off of Jokic because Jokic is getting beat up and he's still putting up great numbers, but he's going to have consistent help. And if he doesn't get that, the Denver Nuggets could be an early exit team from the playoffs again.
Yeah, it's going to be about matchups for them because I think you saw what happened yesterday. You could tell how, especially he was Jokic was kind of dragging during those last couple of minutes of that overtime. So he did have a couple of shots, but you wonder that also that wear and tear. I guess you got to think that that's going to play a role here. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Denver is going to be one of those teams. Like it's really going to depend on matchups in that first round because, like you said, if not, they might be out. They might be a first round exit team. I know some people probably will be shocked that happens, but I wouldn't be, especially if you've seen the way they play, especially in the last month.
Yeah, and look at the teams like the Spurs and the Houston Rockets as well. We mentioned about Minnesota, even a team like Phoenix, if they can stay the course and stay out of the play-in tournament, it's going to be a tough Western Conference like it was last year. So for Denver, they got to get their stuff together and stay injury-free because it's going to be another battle-tested playoff season for them, along with the rest of the teams I just mentioned, the rest of the conference. So Denver has to get it together because you have less than a month left in the regular season. So you got to have all your P's and Q's set.
Continuing with Saturday's games, Orlando edged out Miami. Belcaro had 27 points there. Niemis Quetta had a career high 24 as Boston beat Washington in a very I don't know if weird would be it just would be but 20 points for Jason Tatum and 14 boards, a season high 32 minutes. So he's starting to get it going for the Celtics. I think that's what if you're Joe Mazzulla, that's what you want at this point. You want him to get better, to get used to the minutes and the grind, if you will, this last month and a half of the season, I should say. So so far so good for Tatum and the Celtics. The Spurs took care of the Hornets. Wemby had 32 points. Atlanta, CJ McCollum had 30 points as they beat Milwaukee, and Philadelphia beats the Nets, took care of the Nets, 28 points for Quentin Grimes.
Real quickly, Keen, I saw this on social media yesterday. 3 of the 5 members of the old school group New Kids on the Block who are from Boston. Did you see this on social media? The PA system played the right stuff, and 3 of them, got up and started dancing for like 2 minutes, and then the crowd went wild. I just started laughing. I was like, yeah.
Going
now,
back
I know
to
New
old
Edition's out on tour right now with Tony,
school.
but if they invite them to a Celtics home game, they better give them the same damn respect. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know if one of them was a season ticket holder, but I saw that. I think that was Joey McIntyre. I believe that was Donnie Wahlberg. I think Danny was out there. Danny Wood was out there too. I think that was actually pretty funny how they did that. So yeah, that was actually pretty cute. That was a nice little moment there. Now on Friday, the Commissioner Clippers beating the Bulls. Portland beat Utah. Drew Holiday had 25, a season high for him there. 42 points for Ant as the T-Wolves beat the Warriors. And of course, Ant hit the 3-pointer. He kind of gave Steph to stare down, knowing that Steph probably, I know Steph wanted to just he's not the kind of guy that would do that, but I know he wanted to just reach over and throttle him. But 42 points for Ant, and a lot of bench points from Naz Reid, Ayo. They both had 12. Bo Tyler had 11 points as well, but a nice win for Minnesota. And look, even without Steph, that's still a very tough place to play. But a nice win for them on the road.
Yeah, the Warriors have been hanging tough, no pun intended, without Steph, excuse me, without Steph Curry for the last couple of months. But as we talked about with the Minnesota Timberwolves, you have players that are clutch in crucial situations like the Ant-Man Anthony Edwards, and you have key guys coming off the bench like Nas Reed and Ayo Dosunmu. When you have guys like that on your team that know how to win and that have that experience, it just trickles down to the rest of the guys. And from what happened last Friday, it was that example was no different from other times they've done it before.
Yep. So really nice win for the T-Wolves out there in the Bay Area. Houston, Katie had 32 as they edged out New Orleans. Cleveland beat Dallas. Evan Mobley had 29 points. Toronto, they had a nice weekend. They beat Phoenix. Brendan had 36 points there. The Knicks took care of the Pacers. Brunson had 29. Jalen Duran had 30 as the Pistons beat the Grizzlies.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid and Lakeena here with you, talking Bulls and NBA. Before we get to the schedule for this upcoming week, let's take a look at the latest standings from both conferences. We'll start out with the East, 1 through 6, Detroit, Boston, New York, Cleveland at number 4, Orlando number 5. They quietly have a nice turnaround. They're 38 and 28, 10 games above 500. And number 6 is Toronto. Your playing tournament participants as of now, 7 through 10, Miami, Philadelphia. They should get Paul George back very soon. Atlanta at number 9 and Charlotte at number 10. Atlanta is beginning the job done. You mentioned about CJ McCollum. Let's not forget about Jalen Johnson, the first-time All-Star. He's really having a nice season. Shout out to Quinn Snyder. He's been doing a very good job with the Atlanta Hawks. Everybody thought that they were just going to tank after they traded Trae Young, but it's the best thing that's ever happened to that franchise. The team is better off without him. So shout out to the Atlanta Hawks. I know they're 5 games over 500, but they've been playing better. Of course, Charlotte, they've been the best team since the calendar year. I know they've been hitting a little bit of a road bump, but give young guys credit like Kobe White, Brandon Miller, of course, LaMelo Ball for being consistent. And that team, we all thought they were going to be a threat for a playoff spot a couple of years ago, but injuries have set them back for the last few years. But Charlotte's barely hanging on to that 10th spot. Of course, out of it is Milwaukee, the Bulls, Brooklyn, and Indiana and Washington. So, Lakeena, I think we talk about the same top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference when it's all said and done, or do you think it's going to be some movement there? Because I think it's going to be some movement between Orlando and possibly Toronto, because Miami can get on a run and avoid the play-in for the next few weeks.
Yeah, the whole spot between 5 and 8, and if you want to add Atlanta, I know they've won 9 in a row, but you got to think that there might be a movement between that. Toronto's only a half game back of Orlando, and they're only a game up. I'm talking about Orlando on Miami, and they're 3 games up, I should say, on Philadelphia. They'll get PG back. I'm talking about Philadelphia, so they could probably get a nice little bit of a run there. Miami, we've seen what they're capable of. They've been. They can go on a stretch where they can win 6 or 7 in a row. They've done that this year. So I think they could probably be right there. So I think there's going to be a lot of movement between that 5 to 9 spots. As for the top, look, could Boston, especially now that Tato's starting to find his groove, could they sneak up there on Detroit and get that 1 seed? Maybe not. Who knows? New York could probably be there too. So I think in these last 5, 6 weeks of the season, I think there still might be a lot of movement on both parts. A lot of stuff to be decided in the East.
Yeah. Let's go over to the Western Conference. Your playoff standings look like this: 1 through 6. Oklahoma City, followed by San Antonio. Lakers holding down the 3 spot, especially the way they've been playing lately. Houston holds down the 4th spot. Denver at number 5, and Minnesota at number 6. If the playoffs will start today, the Lakers will face Minnesota again for the second consecutive year. Denver will play Houston. That will be a tough series because OKC will play the 8th seed. Now, the 7 through 10 spots, I think this will stay the same between now and at the end of the season. Maybe a couple of teams will flip-flop here and there, but the teams starting in 7 through 10 spots in the Western Conference. Phoenix is at number 7. The Clippers hold the spot at 8. Golden State at 9 and Portland at 10. The other teams that are out, we don't need to talk about because they don't have a realistic chance to catch Portland or Golden State for that 10th spot. So LaKeena, spots 7 through 10. I think they can flip flop a little bit. But as we talked about earlier with the Western Conference, the Lakers sit at 42 wins. The Phoenix at number 7 at 39. They if you get on the roll and they catch the Lakers slipping, they can jump up to number 4 and number 3. That's how tight this race is in the Western Conference.
Yeah, the Lakers have won 5 in a row, and I think that's going to be interesting to see. Houston. I think they do play Houston a couple more times this season, so that could determine whether or not that they flip. Minnesota, could they get past Denver? Because remember, Denver has a tiebreaker right now. That's the only reason why they're statistically they're tied. But like I said, Denver has the has to see the series for right now. I think they do play one more time, so those two teams could flip flop too. The 7 through 10. I mean, look, I think it's really gonna I think the positions are gonna change. It's really gonna be the 8 through 10. I don't think unless Phoenix goes to real free for all, I don't see the Clippers passing them. I just don't see it happening. The Warriors got to get stuff back if they want to get out of that, and to get a chance to host it. Portland, give Thiago Splitter credit for hanging in there, especially they're gonna be in the playoffs, back in the playoffs. They're gonna push that play in. But yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of movement here. I think the top two I think are pretty much set with the OKC and the Spurs, but I think it's really going to be that 3 through 6 and that 7 through 10. I think there's going to be a lot of movement there at various spots, in these next few weeks.
You talk about the Clippers earlier. Give Tyronn Lue, the head coach, credit for keeping these guys together, especially after the moves they made at the trade deadline. Benedict Mathurin, a newcomer, and let's not forget about Darius Garland. He has been injured the last couple of years in Cleveland. He was part of that James Harden trade at the trade deadline. He's been playing very well with Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard, for the most part, has been healthy for the majority of the season for the second consecutive year, given his age. So shouts out to him as well. Let's get to the schedule for the NBA for this week. Starting out with tonight's games on NBCSN and Peacock. We'll have the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks. That should be a sneaky good game. The Warriors and Grizzlies will do better in our nation's capital. Portland will visit Brooklyn. The Phoenix Suns will visit Boston to take on the Celtics, as the Phoenix Suns will start their East Coast road trip. We mentioned Memphis at Chicago earlier. Dallas will travel to New Orleans. New Orleans have been playing decent ball lately, even though they still stink. The Lakers and the Rockets, as you mentioned earlier, they'll be the second game of the NBCSN Peacock doubleheader tonight at 8:30. And for some of you out on the West Coast on NBCSN Extra, I don't know where that came from, but the Spurs and the Clippers will do battle from the new Intuit Dome.
Yeah, I think it's like the old NBCSN for back in the day. I think that's an extra channel. So if you got the extra channel, if you already got NBCSN, you're gonna get the extra channel too. Just for this game, it'll be streaming on various spots. So if you got it already, your cable, so you will be able to watch this game as well. The Spurs and the Clippers, in addition to the Lakers and the Rockets tonight. Now, speaking of, on Tuesday, you got Miami and Charlotte. That should be an interesting game there. OKC and Orlando. Detroit and the Wizards. Indiana and New York. I'm not repeating we're not repeating ourselves. They are playing once again, this time over at the Garden. Cleveland and Milwaukee. That's the first game of the NBC Peacock doubleheader, so you get to see Giannis against Cleveland, so that might be interesting. Phoenix continues their East Coast trip as they face Minnesota. And the second game, the NBC Coast to Coast, also streaming on Peacock. You got Philadelphia and Denver. And to cap off, tomorrow night, Tuesday, you got the Spurs and the Kings.
A busy Wednesday in the NBA. We'll start off with the first game of the Wednesday night doubleheader featuring the Inside the NBA crew. The first game for that doubleheader on Wednesday will feature the Golden State Warriors traveling to Boston to take on the Celtics. Other games are as follows for Wednesday. OKC will visit Brooklyn. Portland will continue the East Coast trip. They'll visit Indiana. The Raptors and the Bulls will do battle from the UC. The Jazz will take on Minnesota. The Clippers will go on the road. They'll take on the New Orleans Pelicans. The Hawks and the Mavericks will do battle from Dallas. The makeup game for January 25th will feature the Denver Nuggets and the Memphis Grizzlies. And the second game of that Wednesday night doubleheader, no, we're not repeating ourselves for ESPN, is the Lakers and Rockets will do battle once again from Texas.
The old repeat matchups, I tell you, you gotta love those. Thursday. No Prime, no NBA on Prime this Thursday because the late tournament coverage. I guess they assumed a lot of people are going to be watching those games. But even so, the NBA goes on. The Magic and the Yeah, the Magic and the Hornets. No, I'm not repeating myself. They face each other again on NBA TV. Detroit and Washington, Lakers and the Heat. That should be a fun one whenever LeBron goes back to Miami. Cleveland and the Bulls. We talked about that earlier. The Clippers and the Pelicans. Suns and San Antonio. Milwaukee and Utah. And the cap off of Philadelphia and Sacramento at 9 on Thursday. And that's your schedule for this week in the NBA.
You're listening to Second City Sports Zone Chicago. Sid and Lakeena here with you. Our number one's doors are officially closed. Messages. We got to get into baseball, a little bit of the WBC, and there's a top 10 list for the best starting pitchers in Major League Baseball for 2026. We'll recap our selection Sunday show from last night. We'll get to a whole lot of Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings. I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. Yeah, I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
This is Underwood's best team.
So a lot of pressure
on team.
Yeah, so there's some culpability, I think, here with it. When it comes to the NCAA tournament. So, unfortunately, I think to beat Penn. Don't lose stuff, please, against Penn.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life.
Like team that I think might at least pull off.
Let me tell you something. Houston's going to smack them around if they get to Houston.
Well, here's the issue. I would put Houston in my team, but I did that last year, and inevitably they had their clunker. Houston always has a clunker in the tournament where they score like 4 points. Kelvin Sampson loves to defend, and then there's always it's all a problem.
Every day,
Brody coming in number 3.
no
Yankees
matter where
outfielder
we
Aaron Judge
serve,
last night said that World Baseball Classic crowds are bigger
we
and
take a
better than
stand
the World Series. Do you agree
for our
with Judge's
nation,
statement on the atmosphere between
for
the
each
World
other,
Baseball Classic and the World Series?
for us
Yeah,
all.
because the WBC is
The
for the
few,
love of the game.
the
And World
proud,
Series tickets are $1 billion each. It's very corporate, especially consider Aaron Judge plays for the Yankees. So you're talking about
everybody in a work zone is someone somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports on the Monday extravaganza. This year, locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and here's again the IG.
We're going to kick off hour number 2 discussing baseball and perhaps a little bit of the NFL as well. So if you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects, you definitely got to hit us up right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Now, as far as the the World Baseball Classic is concerned, we talked a little bit about it earlier. Of course, the U.S. beat the Dominican Republic. Like I said, I didn't watch a single second of that game, so unfortunately, I watched a little bit of the highlights. I know Dominican Republic. I know they were frustrated by a blown call, but they took it all in stride. So you gotta you gotta give them props to them for that. Now Italy, they will face Venezuela. Like I said earlier at 7:00 on FS1. So if you guys want to check that out, you can. So yeah, but with 10 days before the start of the regular season. I know Aaron Judge, caught a little bit of flack saying that the crowds for the World Baseball Classic are better than the World Series crowds, but I can kind of see him. I kind of see that, for different reasons. I know that the World Series, you do get your fans, but you got a lot of corporate people as well. And in the World Baseball Classic, you're probably you're probably getting fans that don't usually get a chance to go to MLB games. So it's fine, I guess.
And also, too, even though the games here in the U.S. are in Miami and in Houston, like you said, the ones that especially you cannot take your family out to a outing during a playoff game. And we talked about it before with other sporting events like the NFL and the NBA. Baseball is still the cheapest, so you can't take your family 4 or 5 out to a playoff game, but you can definitely do it for a regular season game and for a special event like this that happens every 4 years. Even though me personally, I think it's a waste of time. For obvious reasons, you can take your family for a 4-hour day. You can get the cheapest seats. You can still spend a decent amount on tickets, and you can have yourselves a good time. So I get where he's coming from with that. And plus, it's almost like the Olympics. It's about playing for your teammates, playing for your country, playing for pride. And so you don't see that all the time in the regular season in these games. So when events like this come around every 4 years, just like in World Cup soccer before. For both the men's and the women's, you see players laying out on the line. So I think fans do appreciate that. They love that. And so they're going to pay a premium price for it. So here's another example here why Aaron Judge said what he said.
Yeah, I think that's really. Yeah, I think, like I said, I don't think they should give a flack. I think he was just being honest. And if you see the atmosphere, I've seen the highlights of it. It is a lot different. It was basically night and day. So yeah, I can kind of see where he's coming from about the crowds being, different and such. So, and like you said, the tickets are cheaper for the World Baseball Classics. You can get some snacks or whatever and tickets and have it all right there. So I think that's really kind of where where those comments are coming from. So I mean, I don't have an issue with what he said. I think he was just being honest. I feel like.
And also, too, with the World Baseball Classic, if you've been watching the highlights here on YouTube or you've been watching them on television, it's up. Everybody talks about diversifying and inclusion and bringing people together. That's the beauty. One of the beauties about sports, bringing people together from all different backgrounds, shapes, and sizes. You're seeing different cultures being represented in a positive way here at the World Baseball Classic, not just here in America, but with the Dominican team, the Japanese squads, the way they celebrate, the way they support their teammates, and I think it's been a beautiful thing, and that's one good thing that I'll say about the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, now the injuries, though, unfortunately, you saw what happened. If you're a White Sox fan, you saw what happened with Kyle Teal last week, and now, of course, Seiya Suzuki for the Cubs. If you saw Craig Counsell's comments, he doesn't want to give any. You can kind of tell he's a little bit. I wouldn't say worried, but I think he's kind of cringing a little bit. I mean, congrats to his daughter, by the way. Of course, her high school, they won the Wisconsin state title. I think one of the small divisions. I think because she goes to a small private school. So congrats to her and her team. But this whole thing. I mean, look, if for me, if you're a Cubs fan, I think if Seiya has to miss a month, like 6 weeks, okay, you can live with that. It's not ideal, but you can live with that. Anything longer than that, I think the anxiety goes up a little bit. Thankfully, you got a lot of depth there with the Cubs and such. So it's kind of twofold, but I think, yeah, a little bit concerned, but hopefully we'll get some news, I guess, later today about Seiya.
Yeah, with Seiya Suzuki, he's coming into a contract year. Of course, we said for the last couple of years on the show that his defense has been lacking, and that's why he was the primary DH last year. He's going to be the primary DH this year. And as we talked about with GM Ryan Poles with the Bears, Jed Hoyer, building depth throughout this roster, especially in the pitching stats, where we've been hollering about for the last couple of years, is very important because injuries are going to happen. Here's another example right here. And so, like you said, just like with Cal too, with the White Sox, if the injury is not too bad, let them take their time and get back into the lineup because we all know the pressure's on for the Cubs to not only win the division but go and make a deep playoff run. I'm not going to say this is the last dance, quote unquote, for the squad, but you kind of get that sense a little bit. So the Cubs have the pieces ready to challenge for the division, perhaps for the NL pennant as well. So it's not off to a good start, which you don't like. But if you're a team like the Cubs, you expect this to happen. That's why, like you said, depth is so important. Now, the $1 million question is who's going to play right field consistently? Will it be Matt Shaw? Will it be Moises Ballesteros? Will it be somebody else? I'm not going to say Dylan Carlson because he's a young prospect. You'll probably see him later on in the season if barring any major injuries. But who's going to play right field and who's going to be the backup first baseman for Tucker? So for Michael Tucker, who had a nice year last year. So the Cubs, like you said, they're on paper they're stacked and ready to go, but injuries are a part of it. It's just you hope that, especially with the 10 days left or so in the remaining spring training, that some of those backups guys that we talked about for the last few weeks, that they get some at bats, to get some experience, to gain some confidence because their name, you don't know when your name is going to be called.
Yeah, I think that's really kind of like the depth is going to
Michael
be past
Bush,
Michael
not Michael Tucker. Apologize.
Yeah, well, Michael Conforto, this might be, especially if Seiya does have to miss time, it might open up a spot for him, to be a part of that. Maybe he could probably play. We know he can play right field, so he may have to be called upon, to play right field in case Seiya does, have to miss an extended period of time. So I think if you're Craig Counsell, you're kind of cautious that you don't want to. You hope that it's not the worst for Seiya. You've got guys in the back end that can kind of help out and step up. You could probably put Matt Shaw. You could probably, it's going to be interesting. You could probably put Matt Shaw out there. I mean, look, he's basically been playing just about every position except for pitching in the spring. So, kind of test him out and see what he does there. Now, as far as the White Sox are concerned, now, I mean, look, I think you've got a lot of depth there to help out since Steele's going to be gone for the first few weeks of the season. And I'm kind of look. I think if you're the White Sox, I think you're kind of just looking for some of the the different kind of like combinations you can play with here. So of course Shane Smith, will be your opening day starter for the White Sox, and getting guys like Colson Montgomery. I know he's had a good spring. Chase Mydroff, Vargas has had a nice spring as well. And I think if you're the White Sox, you want to try to perhaps maybe, try to at least get, if you kind of get into that 500 range, if you can win 70, 75, that's where you should be your ceiling, that if you're the White Sox.
Yeah, let's not forget that some of their young guys have been having great springs. So I know Sam Tanachi, some White Sox fans want him at second base right now. I don't think that's going to happen, but you may see him later on in the year, whether it's injuries or what have you. I know he's doing his thing with Team Italy in the World Baseball Classic, but Brady Montgomery has had a nice spring. You'll probably see him up here later this season. Let's not forget about Tanner McDougal, who one of their pitcher prospects. I know they sent him down, I believe, last week to the minors, but you may see him back up here later in the year. Of course, Hagen Smith, a young left-hander who pitched well yesterday. His 2 innings, he gave up no runs, no hits, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. Even though the Sox lost to Kansas City 10-4, Hagen Smith go when you had him on your team. So the White Sox have a lot of options there to make some moves. GM Grizzle, yeah, couple of other pieces to play with it as well. But the most important thing here with the Cal Till injury, most teams.
Yeah, so I think the White Sox. I think you're kind of like in that. You're kind of like right there in the middle of trying to being right there to kind of like be a 500 team. So I think if you're the White Sox, this is how you kind of like how you want to preserve. Get the young guys to start playing even better, build on what you did last year. And look, you've got a solid pitching. You got Anthony Dominguez as your closer. Anthony Kay, you picked him up as well. Eric Fetty, we'll see how he is on the back of that starting rotation. So I think if you're the White Sox, you're gotta be feeling pretty good about right now. Perhaps, look, I'm not gonna say that they're gonna compete for one of the wild card spots, but it could definitely give teams some fits this year.
All right, you listen to Second City Sports on Chicago. Sid and Lakeena here with you as we talk Major League Baseball. Of our listeners.com. They had a list of the top 20 starting pitchers for 2026. We won't go through the whole list, but I'll just read off some of the names here. In 30 starts last year, he pitched 186 and 2/3 innings with a whip. Checking in at number 9, Hunter Brown of the Houston Astros. He had a 2.3 ERA last year with a 1.03 WHIP. Number 8, Jacob DeGrom of the Texas Rangers. I know he's been struggling through injuries throughout the last few years, but last year he ended the season with a 2.97 ERA. Checking in at number 7, even though this pitcher was injured last year, former White Sox pitcher the Atlanta Braves. And checking in at number 6, Logan Webb of the San Francisco Giants. In his 34 starts last year,
I like that first 5 list. Like I said, a couple of those guys have been through injuries. Hopefully, they can avoid those injuries and be very productive this year. So I'm looking forward to see what Logan Webb does, and also to it's going to be interesting to see how all those pitchers. I think a lot is expected for those guys this year.
All right, finishing up the top 5 list. Number 5, he pitched over 200 innings with a 2.50 ERA. Olamu Yamamoto completed last year with the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers. In his 30 starts last year, he pitched over 102 WHIP. At number 3, another former White Sox pitcher, Garrett Crochet of the Boston Red Sox. He was a top 3 candidate for the AL Cy Young award last year. In his 32 starts, he pitched over 205 innings with a 2.59 ERA in a 1.03 WHIP. Number 2, Paul Skeens, starting 9.7 ERA in a 0.95 whip. And of course, at number one to 190 whip.
Not surprised that Tariq Scooble's your number one guy. I mean, if he has a solid start, could perhaps maybe go into back-to-back Cy Youngs. I mean, that hasn't happened in many years. I think Garrett Crochet, I think he might be right there, competing for another Cy Young. So I think that's a good solid list of top 10 pitchers. I think it's going to be interesting to see if a lot of those guys can avoid injuries. Paul Schemes, I mean, I know, look, he's pitching very well over at the World Baseball Classic right now, the WBC, and I'm wondering if at some point does he ask perhaps maybe Pittsburgh for a trade if they go through another bad start this year, and he's one of the few bright spots. We'll have to wait and see. I know he's being very diplomatic about it right now, but I mean, that's really going to be another thing that's going to be key, is see what happens over the season.
Yeah, we talked about Tariq Scoobal doing the all season at the start of spring training. Of course, he's entering the final year of his contract. Of course, he got that salary bump due to arbitration hearing. Of course, he's going to make up around $32 million a year. He was making 19 for the Detroit Tigers. Of course, he's a free agent, so he's going to be the main draw at the August 2nd trade deadline this year if the Tigers do not do well to start off the year. You mentioned about Paul Skeens, LaKeena. We saw that here in Chicago with Michael Kopech throwing hard throughout his career, and he missed the whole 2019 season, and of course he skipped the shortened COVID year at 2020. So when young guys throwing hard, is that you worry about their shoulder issues, potential shoulder issues, and elbow issues as well. So, but Paul Skeens has been the real deal in his 2+ years with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Just hope they build around it, because if they don't, whenever his contract is up, he's going bye-bye to a big market team. Come to the White Sox. We got the Pope on our side.
All right, well, it'll be interesting to see what if it does come to that, and we'll see. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of folks that are going to be vying for his services should it come to that. You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena McGee, Sidney Brown with you. We got a few more minutes left, Sid. Let's talk a little NFL. Even in the middle of March, the NFL never sleeps. There was a big trade that came down the pipe a couple of hours ago. Former Bears QB Justin Fields, who was with the Jets last year, he has been traded to the Chiefs for a 2027 6th-round pick. And it's going to be interesting here. Of course, Eric Bieniemy is over there now. And they were, of course, this sort of replaces, he's, of course, when Geno Smith decided to go back to was traded back to the Jets. Of course, he played for the Jets for a few years. You got to think that Fields was going to go bye-bye as well. Now, the Jets, are paying $7 of the $10 million that Fields, signed in this guaranteed salary, and the Chiefs will pay the rest of it. So he could be a solid backup for Mahomes, or maybe the Chiefs want to do their due diligence in case Mahomes isn't ready for week one, like some people he might be. So I think if you're Fields, I know he feels like he's still capable of being a number one starter, but I think going to the Chiefs, I think, isn't exactly a bad thing. I think if you're Justin Fields.
I agree with you. I've been saying to people for the last year or so that when Justin Fields was traded from Chicago to Pittsburgh, his days as a starting quarterback was over, as a franchise quarterback was over. Is he a great athlete? Yes. Could he stay around as a career backup quarterback? Yes, that's still not a bad thing. Still earning a decent amount of money. Now, with the situation with Kansas City that you're talking about, he's the definite quote-unquote perfect backup for Mahomes, because I had that same thought when I read that breaking news a couple hours ago before we took it here on the air, that Patrick Mahomes may not be ready for week one. I know he tore that Achilles, I believe, in late December last year, so it usually takes 10 to 12 months or full year to get back. So if Kansas City is very careful, which they will, because Mahomes is still there, bread and butter, the face of that franchise. He may be back by the end of October, early November, just in time for the Kansas City to make that playoff run if they're around the 500 mark. So, but Andy Reid knows what to do with specialized type players. I think Justin Fields, if he just happens to get that starting spot while Mahomes is working his way back to start the year from that torn ACL, I think Kansas City will be okay. He still has some decent weapons around him, like Travis Kelce, who's back for another year. And so you don't have to depend on Justin Fields to throw for 300, 400 yards. He's not that guy. He's a dynamic athlete. He's definitely can run out of the pocket. We saw that at Ohio State. We saw that here in Chicago with the Bears. You saw glimpses of that last year when he was with the New York Jets. So with an athlete like Justin Fields, you don't have to ask him to do too much. And plus, he has a star running back in Kenneth Walker III, who the Chiefs signed away from Seattle, the defending world champs last year. So he has some weapons around him, so you don't have to depend him to do everything like you had to when he was here in Chicago.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. If you're Fields, that's not a bad thing. Of course, your Gardner Minshew went to Arizona, so that's probably why the Chiefs decided to make this move. So we'll see if it does pay dividends for them. A couple other signings. Dallas Goedert is going back to the Eagles on a new 1-year deal. Let's see here. Nick Scott, the safety from the Panthers, he's going back to the Panthers on a 1-year deal. Trey Lance is going back to the Chargers to back up Justin Herbert. And an old friend of the Bears, former wide receiver, Darnell Mooney. Of course, he's been with the Falcons the last couple of years. He's going to play for new head coach John Harbaugh and the Giants. So beefing up that wide receiving core for the Giants. The Giants were making some moves. So what do you think about some of these moves, Sid?
Yeah, with the New York Football Giants, they're getting a good receiver in Darnell Mooney. We saw what he did here in Chicago. Of course, he did a great job with the Atlanta Falcons the last couple of years. John Harbaugh, the new head coach, the former Baltimore Ravens head coach, he's making some moves over there. He's given a lot of power as well for the next 5 years for the salary that they paid him. So John Harbaugh is setting the tone for that franchise. And going into his second year out of Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, he's going to have some weapons to throw to. Let's not forget, too, Cam Scatterbull is going to be back next year. And Malik Neighbors, I believe he's going into his 4th year out of LSU, if my math is correct. And so Jackson Dart is going to have plenty of weapons around him. And as the Giants have tried to improve their team, make it back to the playoffs for the first time in the last 4 years.
And also, this was just posted about an hour ago. Veteran corner Darius Slay announced his retirement after 13 seasons in the NFL. He was initially claimed by Buffalo late last year after he was released by the Steelers. He didn't report to the team, though. He does have a Super Bowl ring, of course, with the Eagles. He was released after that. He was a 6-time Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro back in 2017. 20 interceptions, 163 passes defended, 655 tackles in his 13 season career. Of course, he began the season with Detroit. He was a second rounder in 2013 out of Mississippi State. He says he's preparing for his next chapter. Could it be television? He's got a great personality, so we might be seeing him on a TV screen or maybe even doing his own podcast soon.
Yeah, and that's where the avenue that many of these players are heading to now for following their retirement. If you you obviously got to have the knowledge of the game, but if you have that it factor, you have that aura, like you say, you have that personality, you could do some things. And I don't know if Jameis Winston is going to do that this year if he doesn't sign back with the New York Football Giants or someone else. But as we talked about before, he's going to have some jobs lined up for him. We know about Travis Kelce. He does the podcast with his brother, Jason of ESPN. That's a good podcast. So if Darius Slay is an avenue that he wants to explore, he'll definitely have his opportunities.
Yeah, great petter, a good guy. So hopefully, look, I know he said he's ready for that next chapter. So like I said, we might be seeing him in a TV screen or streaming screen or a podcast near you. So Congrats on a great career, Mr. Slay. I know he gave the Bears first when he was with Detroit and also with Philadelphia. So I'm sure folks there are too happy are very happy to see him have a nice retirement.
Yeah, very happy indeed.
All right, we're gonna take a really quick break. Of course, we'll do our sports potpourri segment. We're gonna have our final four. We may talk a little bit of women's basketball. We'll see. I know their brackets came out last night. This is all going to connect to Old School TV Monday, a special edition of that. Blackhawks, they got a tough loss against Vegas, and so much more. And a little sports media news, as of course the tournament announcing teams will have assigned their sites. We'll see we'll tell you who's going where, all the tip-off times and such. So much more coming up. LaKeena McGee, Sidney Brown. Oh, you're over here. The second City Sports, Hot Sports, so Chicago. Our sports potpourri led by March Madness coming up right after this.
Poof.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGetty, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
This is our sports potpourri segment. This is our last break of the show for today. So, if you have any last minute questions or comments, or any other subjects we discussed thus far on today's show, you got to hit us up, not now, but right now, at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Let's do that hockey real quick, sis, so we can just get that out the way. The Blackhawks had a tough loss in Las Vegas to the Golden Knights. They were shut out 4-0. It was just a struggle there. It was basically all Knights. Dorofeev had 2 goals for the Knights. He's been killing it all season long. For the second straight game, he's been on a hot streak since the hockey. The NHL's been back from break, and Alden Hill had his first shutout of the year for Vegas. So of course, had to been against the Blackhawks. So yeah, tough loss from them. But yeah, they're back home. They'll face Minnesota tomorrow. You can watch that game, as I said earlier, on TNT and stream on HBO Max. And yeah, I think if you're the Blackhawks, I think you want to try to finish strong. You cleared a lot of cap. You got some cap room now. So hopefully, Kyle Davidson. I think I don't want to say this is a make or break, off season for him, but it kind of is if you think about it.
Yes, yep. Yep. Because like you said, they cleared all that cap space with the veterans that they don't need on the team any longer. So they did that. They accomplished their goals at the trade deadline right before the Olympic break. And the way this young team is playing right now, you can tell that even though they're losing some of these close games, hopefully they'll learn sooner rather than later in preparation for next year. Uh, they know what to do in crucial situations, and they'll have the better talent supplied by upper management to help likes like excuse me, Connor Bedard and my guy Tyler Bertuzzi, and to help those guys, your nucleus, take the next step. Like I said, Spencer Knight, I know he's been struggling here lately, but he's still your guy in net, in my opinion. And Jeff Blashill has been doing a great job with this Hawks here. I know they got up to that surprising start early in the year. You started to see things even now because they're a young team, but one thing we have been saying all year long, we'll say it here, as you like you say, you wanted to finish the season strong. This team has not quit, and they have not been embarrassed too many times this year. So you say, well, they got outclassed because of the lack of talent. That's one thing, but to go out there, throw your skates out there, just go through the motions, that has not, I repeat, has not been this team this year.
Yeah, so that's all you can really ask for this Blackhawks squad. Like I said, I think that the Knights just dominated them. It wasn't like they were just bad. I think like I said, the Knights have been pretty dominant so far. Now, tough news for Toronto. I mean, I know they won yesterday against the Wild, but a tough loss for them as Austin Matthews is done for the year with a lower leg injury. So unfortunately, things gone from bad to worse for Toronto, unfortunately. So yeah, not good there. Now, Nathan McKinnon is in the top 5. I think we talked about that, before the NHL went on their Olympic break. I mean, he's top 5 in goals. He's behind Nathan McKinnon in points, like 5 points behind. And he's also in plus minus. Scott Wedgwood is one of the top goalies in the league. So, and the Colorado's been looking really good all season long. So for me, I don't want to say they're the team to beat because, like I said, I think Carolina, you know how I feel about the Carolina squad, Sid. I know Buffalo's been pretty good too this year as well. Dallas is right there behind the Avs. So that Western Conference. So yeah, those two teams are really killing it.
Yeah, as we said, the last couple of years, the Western Conference is stacked, but it could be anybody's guys. We thought that Winnipeg, remember, they had a great regular season last year. They barely survived the first round of the playoffs before they lost in the second round. So anything can happen. Like I said, Colorado is back on top now. Could they lose it? Sure, but right now they're looking very good. Hopefully for Buffalo, the last time they made the playoffs is when the Hawks won their first Stanley Cup, and that was 16 years ago. So it's been way too long for those suffering Buffalo Sabres fans. I know that's a great hockey town, and it's historically a great franchise. They've been there since the 70s, so I know they got the Buffalo Bills as their other professional franchise, but those fans of Buffalo have suffered long enough, so hopefully they get to experience some playoff hockey this year. I'm talking about on their own home ice instead of watching other teams on TV.
Yeah, I think Buffalo's looked really, really good too, and I think that Jack Winsman, pretty good for that Sabres squad. Tate Thompson, we talked about him. So yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting to see what happens this last. They also got about another month and a half left in their regular season, even though after their break. But yeah, it should be an interesting next couple of months in the NHL.
All right. You're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago. Sid and Lakeena here with you. Now let's transition over to college basketball before we give out our final 4 picks. You have some sports media news regarding the schedule for the 2026 men's tournament.
I do. If I could just get this darn thing up here. This thing's going backwards here, folks. Of course, you got the first 4 games tomorrow. Now, we talked about it. If you can go back and listen to and watch our Selection Sunday special. Thank you guys for if you haven't watched already. Those of you who haven't, True TV is that time of year, folks. You gotta find True TV in your cable, satellite, or streaming platforms. Tomorrow,
let me find it right now, live and in living color, while you talk.
Yes, you do that.
Thank you for that reminder.
Yes, that's okay. Tomorrow, these games are gonna be in Dayton. The first 4, you got UMBC against Howard. That is, want to make sure I got the bracket. right here. Now, the winner of that game will face Florida. Florida. That'll be in the no. They face They'll face Michigan in the Midwest region. And the second game of that 11 seeds, you've got the North Carolina State and Texas. That should be a good one at 8:15. The winner of that game will face BYU in the West region. And on Wednesday, some good ones here. Prairie View and Lehigh. The winner of that game in the South region will face Florida. And the second game of that first four doubleheader, like I said, folks are bitching about Miami of Ohio being in. Okay, they got in. Okay, there you go. And they'll face a really good SMU team from the ACC. The winner of that game in the Midwest region will face Tennessee on Friday. So those games will be on True TV. So it's all right there. And the rest of your first and second round first round games, I should say. The first off will be in South Carolina and Greenville. The first game up at 11:15 Chicago time will be TCU and Ohio State. That will be Eagle, Bill Raftery, and Grant Hill and Tracy Wilson will have the call of those games in Greenville. Then it'll be followed by that's on 11:40 Troy and Nebraska. Nebraska, again, this is their shot to finally win their elusive first game in the NCAA tournament. They have never won one ever since they've been to the tournament. That'll be in OKC. Brandon Gaudin, Chris Webber, and Andy Cass. That's a new team this year. Brian Anderson, Jim Jackson, Iowa Forest will have the games from Buffalo, South Florida, and Louisville. We talked about that game, Sid. That should be a fun one, 11 versus 6. And then, of course, in Portland, all the way in Oregon, High Point, which has a 14-game winning streak. That's the longest in D1 right now, as they face Wisconsin. Brad Nessler, Wally Zerbiak, and Jared Greenberg will have the call of that game. Then after that game, back in Greenville, you got Siena and Duke. Then you got McNeese and Vanderbilt. That's gonna be OKC. Buffalo. In Buffalo, you got North Dakota State and Michigan State. Portland, you got Hawaii and Arkansas. That'll be the early games there. And then you got in Greenville, you got VCU, North Carolina. UMBC Howard game, they'll face Michigan. Texas, NC State winner will face BYU in Portland. Texas A&M and St. Mary's, that'll be in OKC. Penn and Illinois, of course, a professional to all you Illini fans. They will play at 8:25, approximately 8:25. That'll be the second game of that nightcap in Greenville. You got in Buffalo, you got St. Louis and Georgia, Kennesaw State and Gonzaga. That'll be in Portland. The St. Louis and Georgia game will be in Buffalo. And OKC, the capper here, you got Idaho and Houston. Oh boy, that's exhausting. That's just the first slate of games.
Yeah, I'll attempt to read off the second slate of games. So this is for Friday. It'll start off at 11:15 a.m. on CBS. Kentucky will face Santa Clara, followed by Texas Tech at Akron. That's on True TV at 11:40. At 12:35 on TNT. This is for Friday, folks. Arizona will host Long Island in a 16-1 matchup. At 12:50 on TBS, Virginia and Wright State. At 1:50 on CBS, Iowa State versus Tennessee State. That's a 15-2. Excuse me. At 2:15 on True TV, Hofstra versus Alabama. 3:10 on TNT on Friday. Villanova versus Utah State in an 8-9 matchup. At 3:25 on TBS, Tennessee versus opponent to be determined. Let's go to the Friday night games. 8-9 matchup, Clemson versus Iowa at 5:50 on TNT, followed by St. John's and Northern Iowa in the 5-12 matchup. That will kick off the Friday night coverage for CBS at 6:10. At 6:25 on TBS, we have UCLA and UCF. That's the University of Central Florida for those of you scoring at home. Followed by on True TV at 6:35, Purdue and Queens. At 8:25 on TNT, to be determined versus Florida. At 8:45 on CBS, Kansas versus CA Baptist. Furman versus UConn at 9 o'clock on TBS. And wrapping up the Friday night schedule, the 7-10 matchup, Missouri versus University of Miami. Yes, the U. They'll be at Friday at 9:10 p.m. on True TV. Yes, LaKeena, I found True TV on my Xfinity package, channel 320 for those of you scoring at home.
All right. And just for clarification, who will be calling those games? Friend of the show, Spiro Diaz and Jim Spanarkel and John Ross will call the games in St. Louis. Tom McCarthy, former two-time women's champion, Candace Parker and Dan Bonner, and AJ Ross will have the call of the games in Tampa. Kevin Harlan, Robbie Hummel, Stan Van Gundy, and Lauren Shahidi. We'll have some news about her in a second here. They'll be calling the games out in San Diego. And in Philly, you got Andrew Caroline and Steve Lapis, who coached at Villanova before Jay Wright did. And Evan Washburn have the games out in Philadelphia. And, of course, those games there. I just want to clean up here. The Greenville games in the afternoon will be on TNT, I should say. Buffalo early games will be on CBS. TBS will have the early games in Portland. True TV and will have the games from OKC in the early games there for the wait, I'm in the wrong one here. For the nightcaps here at night here for a second. Okay, yeah. The Greenville games will be on TNT. The Buffalo games will be on CBS. The Portland games will be on TBS Thursday night, and True TV will have the games from OKC. So hope you guys got all that. I know that was a lot for you guys to absorb. I hope you guys got all that.
All right. Now it's time for our world famous Final Four picks. I don't know if you don't want to write this in pencil. I know a lot of people are in their work pools, their school pools for money, not for money, whichever way you may go. LaKeena, well, I'll start with you first. Who is your Final Four pick in your national champion?
All right, let me get my little thingy here. I got a couple of brackets. I got my little cheat sheet here. So bear with me, folks. I guess I got about 5 different winners so far, but I guess I'll go with the one that I'll go with the one where I'm most confident. I actually did pretty well last year. I got all 4 number 1 seeds. Don't know if that's going to be the case this year, but we'll see. I've got Duke coming out of the East. Houston coming out of the South. I got Arizona coming out of the West and Michigan coming out of the Midwest. And I've got Duke and Arizona, the rematch of that 0-1 title game there. And I've got, again, this is at face value, folks. I've got Duke winning this one. I'm not very confident in that right now. Instantly, I got another one where I have Florida winning. Then I got another one where I have... I know it's silly. Yeah, I know that's me. But then I got another one where I got Arizona winning one. So take them all at face value, folks. You can change them anytime you want.
Yeah, this definitely gonna get changed now. But I'll go with the Arizona. I have Arizona coming out of the West. In the Midwest, I will shock people, and I will have Alabama coming out of that region. For now. In the South, I have Houston. I agree with you. I think they'll edge out Florida. If it's not Houston, it's Florida. But I got Houston and coming out of the South. And, of course, coming out of the East is Duke. And I have Arizona as my national champion.
Okay, cool. Okay, that's a solid Final Four in the South. I think Arizona is I think Arizona is capable of doing it. But we've been saying that for the last 2 years. So, I think Tommy Boyd's got the guys that can do it this year, but again, we've seen a lot of strange things happen all season long. I don't think we're gonna have all number 1 seeds. I just don't see it happen. I think one or two of those. Either. Yeah, I think 1 or 2 of those number 1 seeds could lose. Who will it be? Where will it happen? Who knows? But yeah, I don't see it happening this year.
Now, we usually see a 12 upset of 5 this year. You usually see 1 or 2. If that's the case again this year, which I think it will be, where do you see it? Is it coming out of the East, the West, the South, or the Midwest?
I think the popular one in the West, you got Wisconsin, High Point. We talked about that on last night. Go back and listen to it, folks. So we're finished here. Because like I said, High Point, like I said, we talked about High Point. They're the chance of the SoCon, and look, they got a 14 game win streak. Longest, they average about 85 points a game. It's going to be a track meet there. Boyd and Blackwell, those guys got to step it up because High Point will wear you out. So hopefully Greg Gar will have his guys ready. I can see that happening. Let me see. I don't see any ones. I mean, you probably could say I know Akron and Texas Tech. Some people think that could be a 5-12. Maybe Vandy and McNeese. A lot of those guys, they were there the last couple of years with McNeese. So I think any of those 4. Northern Iowa over St. John's. I don't think that's going to happen, but you may catch them in a bad day. Who knows? But I would say maybe out of those four, I think the most likely was probably a High Point over Wisconsin. Don't know if I don't think that's going to happen, but I think if you want to pick one, I guess that's probably your not your best bet, but something that really could happen. I think.
But I think people underrate Akron and Texas Tech because J.P. Toppin's injury, him being out for a year, I think it's going to affect Texas Tech. Let's just say even to get by Akron, they had to play the winner at Alabama Hostile. They'll probably end up playing Alabama. Now, I think that's going to come into that injury is really going to come into play and it's going to affect them. So keep your eye on Akron and Texas Tech.
Should be as it. Yes, I agree. Now looking at some of these, again, the 11 is over a 6 is usually one that happens every year. I know really like the popular trendy one is over the South region. VCU in North Carolina, especially with no Caleb Wilson. That's another very popular pick. Maybe Tennessee. I know they've had their struggles lately, although I think one of their top scorers should be back in time since they don't play till Friday. Whoever wins the Miami versus or SMU, I think that some say that could be an upset too in the Midwest, maybe, or whoever gets out of the first floor tomorrow. Texas or NC State, BYU. I mean, if you get AJ DeBoska in a bad shooting day, one of them could probably pull off the quote unquote upset. Who knows? Out in the West region. I know South Florida, Louisville, South Florida. Like I said, that's a speedy team in South Florida. We know Louisville's have had their struggles this year. Maybe they perhaps may pull off the upset. Who knows? But there are some possibilities here. We may see some double-digit seeds go make a run here.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the 14 and the 3. We usually have maybe one upset every once in a while. In the East region, the 14 and 3 is Kansas versus Cal Baptist. Of course, in the South, we have Illinois and Penn. I think Illinois should take care of business against the University of Pennsylvania. In the Midwest, in a 14-3 match, we have Virginia versus Wright State. I think Virginia should take care of business there. Remember, they were the victim of the first round upset back in 2018, as we talked about on our show last night. And of course, in the West region, you have Kennesaw State over Gonzaga. Gonzaga, even though they don't have a lot of big time scores on their team, they play very well defensively. They should be able to take care of Kennesaw State.
Yeah, I think they should be. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, if they lose, I think it's going to be whoever wins that 6-11 matchup. I think. I know Gonzaga. I know this year this hasn't been. This isn't the most. I don't want to say most talented, but I think they've had a lot of injuries this year, and they've had their share of upsets. So, but I don't see. Kansas. I know. Like Antoine Petway, of course, he was part of that 04 Alabama squad that got all the way to the Elite Eight. I know they're gonna, a lot of emotion there. Of course, Abdur Rahim, Coach Abdur Rahim, Share Abdur Rahim, of course, passed away before the season started. He kind of helped build that program. I know they're gonna be, getting that inspiration there. I just don't see them beating Gonzaga unless you catch them in a bad way. Like they did against Portland about a month ago. I just don't see it happening. But if it were to happen, I think that would be the game. I think that would do it. I don't see any other ones. I mean, Hofstra in Alabama. I know one of their guys got arrested for drug possession. Really, dude? Really? That's a whole different.
Aiden Holloway.
That's a whole different. Aiden Holloway. Really? Yeah. Really? Aiden Holloway. Really? I don't know, but yeah, but I think Hofstra. I know Speedy Clax. I know he's a part of that. I know they had made upset. Nebraska and Troy, like I said, I'm sure Fred Horvath will make sure his guys will be ready for that Troy squad. But yeah, I don't. A 14 versus 3. You may see it once every blue, but I don't see it happening this year. I just don't see it.
Okay, it's just another seed, another double-digit seed that could get people to trouble. Like you said, the 7-10 matchups. Yeah, so like I said the 7-10 matchups, your 8-9 matchups are really toss-up matchups there. You could see maybe an upset or two here, but those are top sets. So any of those 7-10 or 8-9 matchups that catch your eye?
I mean, we talked about Ohio State and TCU in the East. That could be a really fun one on Thursday, or that's going to be the first game on Thursday. That should be a good one. Villanova, Utah State. I mean, Utah State. I think that's like I've always had a soft spot for that program. They're really good. They've had coaches leave and come and go, but they've been consistent. Georgia and St. Louis. I mean, that could be one of those first to 90 wins, and that one in Clemson, Iowa. Again, there could be a 3-point fest in that game out there in the South region. So that might be a good one there. So the 8-9s are always fun. The 7-10s are always fun too. St. Mary's and and Texas A&M. That should be a fun one out there in the South. In the Midwest, you got Kentucky and Santa Clara, Miami and Mizzou. That might be a fun one. Also, UCF. I think UCF has a chance perhaps may win a couple of games because with the injury situation, with UCLA, they could Johnny Dawkins, his guys could probably catch him at a bad time. So I could see them perhaps maybe beating UCLA.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago. Sid and Lakeena here with you. Before we close it out with a special edition of Old School TV Monday, you have the rest of the sports sports media news for us. Please share with the audience.
I gotta look it up here. Well, now CBS looks like we'll be staying. NFL will be staying with CBS. Various reports. Guys from like John Oran, Mike Florio, and them. They're saying that they're working towards a new deal. This, of course, according to John Oran of Puckmore, and also Alex Sherman of CNBC. These are sports media guy over there that they may add another $1 billion or more to its current annual rate of 2.1. They would retain the Sunday afternoon package that features a pair of weekly windows every other week, a late afternoon, mostly national game that will often generate the big audiences, of course. And of tracking the new arrangement into the back end of the deal, the NFL could and would scrap after the 2019 season. The new rate would take effect as soon as next season. So that means that could end up paying an extra $4 billion or more over the course of 4 seasons that already been contractually settled. But yeah, you got to pay that's kind of price to pay if you want to keep it right there. And the rates have been very solid. So it looks like NFL and CBS will continue their partnership.
Yeah, as we say all the time, especially now in this technology streaming nature that we are in right now, linear television is I don't think it's ever going to go away. But anything that's valuable on linear television is live sports, and that's how all these networks will make their money off of advertisement and viewership, and so on and so on. So the NFL is the most popular TV show, sports and non-sports in our country, the United States. So CBS recognized that along with Fox and NBC as well. So they pay a whole lot of money to televise the number one TV show in our country. And like I said, this is the price tag. If you have the cash to pony up, you better do it, or else somebody's going to take it from beneath you. Now, as we give you a little bit of history lessons, CBS learned this lesson after that got rid of the rid of the NFL following the '93 season, and of course they went back in prior to the 1998 season, in which they still are partners with the NFL now. So they learned their lesson from the mid '90s, and they're not going to give it up anytime soon, especially with them doing well.
And you got to think that Fox, NBC, and ESPN, even Amazon will be looking at this and say, okay, yeah, they're going to have to pony up some money. And unfortunately, some sports, the sports that some of them have now, some of them might have to fall by the wayside in order to pay for this new deal. So it's kind of a double-edged sword here. But I think both sides, I think all sides are realizing that, like you said, Sid, I mean, the linear TV ratings are still very good. I think they were even higher this past season. So I think the NFL realized that, okay, yeah, you know what? We may not want to go give it all to Amazon and Netflix and Peacock and them. We got to keep it in our linear television because that's where you make the most money and even the most advertising dollars.
Yeah. And number two, the NFL is trying to expand to almost every day of the week. I think we talked about this before, which I don't think is a good idea. But, with them being number one, you expect something like that to happen. In my case, unfortunately, down the road, in my humble opinion. And they're trying to expand to play more games overseas. So that's going to pony up for these streaming services that the big networks are not interested in broadcasting those international games.
Going to be very interesting to see what happens there. Troy Aikman said he's going to continue working with Miami and with the Dolphins in some capacity. But, it's kind of going to be like the Tom Brady thing where he won't be like, he'll probably just be a voice in the room. There probably won't be, any type of conflict of interest. I know people were probably kind of worried about that with Brady, but it's not happening here. So good for, everything else. So yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that one. But yeah, at least he's going to stay. I know he says he's always wanted to stay there, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this relation. And look, so far so good.
We have a little bit of breaking news here from the NBA world. We'll get into this more on our next show on Friday. But during the Board of Governors meetings next week, according to Shams Charania of ESPN, the NBA is set for a first vote in the Las Vegas-Seattle expansion process. The two new franchises, if they get the vote, of course, they're being targeted to start play in the 2028-2029 season. I know that it's been a lot that's been said about this. I think it's a foregone conclusion that the NBA wants to be in Vegas. I think that's going to happen. Of course, Vegas is blown up as a big sports town. They have the Raiders. They'll soon have the formerly known as the Oakland A's very soon. And, of course, they got the hockey team in the Vegas Golden Knights who won the Stanley Cup back in 2019. So Vegas and Seattle expect to get the votes to be the two new teams in the NBA. LaKeena, we've been saying this for a whole lot of years. Our good friend Big Dave Watson over at CSO has been saying this too. Should these two new franchises come on board, which I think they will, you move Minnesota and Memphis over from the Eastern Conference to the Western Conference, from the Western Conference to the Eastern Conference. And I think the normal question is how you even out the schedule, because I think it'll be from 30 to 32 teams now. It should this pass, which I think it will.
Yeah, I think Shawnee, they said that they are one or both those teams are expected to move to the Eastern Conference. I know it's always weird that Minnesota and Memphis got to play games like in Portland and then both in Los Angeles a lot, and which I know that's not good for traveling wise. That could be a pain in the butt sometimes for them. Mm-hmm. And granted, the Bulls play in the Western Conference for through most of the 70s, so it's not like it's not weird, but it would make more sense geographically if Seattle and Las Vegas get approval for NBA expansion teams. I think that that's a given there to kind of even it out. I think that's really going to be the number one question. I think is to even out the scheduling, but this would be a really good idea in various forms because of that.
Yeah. All right, LaKeena, as we do around this time every Monday on the show, we close it up with Old School TV Monday, but this will be a special edition for today. We actually, for those of you that want to peep a little peep behind the curtain, we talked about this off the air last week. With March Madness, I know officially starting tomorrow, but if you're old school fan like yours surely is, the real tournament starts on Thursday. LaKeena, I'll ask you the question. We've been watching this ever since we were kids. Our parents passed down the tradition from them to us, and of course, for those of us, not us personally, but for those of you that are age that have kids, kids are in college, about to go to college, interested in sports, this is a very special time of the year. I'll hand you the floor first. What were some of your favorite moments from the NCAA tournament?
Well, I messaged you this yesterday, I should say, and this was the 25th anniversary just passed when Hampton upset Iowa State, Marcus Fizer.
HBCU.
Yep, and in that group that was back in 2001 in Boise, Idaho, and a lot of people thought no one was really expecting this because it was the last game of the first of those first round games. There was no first four play-in yet, so that didn't come until a couple of years later. But I know Larry Eustace, who was the coach there at the time, he had his concerns about that Hampton squad. That was a speedy Hampton squad, and they were able to pull off the big upset, the champions. They were in the MEAC back then. They're not in the MEAC. I think they're in the SoCon now, but back then when they were in the MEAC, if you saw all the celebration, the band was out there, and the coach at the time, he kind of had that. But now I don't know if he can do that now. I mean, the poor guy probably had a hip injury. Steve Murfield, of course, I don't think he probably would be able to do that now. But yeah, that was a really good one. Also, little fun fact. James Worthy was on the call for CBS that night with the wonderful Craig Borg. I know Bowler Jack's been doing the Utah Jazz for years now. But yeah, that was a really good one there. That was probably one of my favorite upsets.
You can look this up, LaKeena, real quick. I'm not on Google because we're about to shut it down here in a couple of minutes. But I remember Jabari Parker's only year back in 2014. That Duke team was upset in the first round. Is someone in the chat that's watching live or on the replay? You can put the answer in the chat. But I remember Duke lost that year, of course, that next year in 2015 behind Justice Winslow and some of the other guys, and Jaleel Okafor. They won the national title. But the year before, when Jabari Parker was on the team in 2014, they lost in the first round. No one saw that come out. I think one of the only few people that picked Duke to lose in that first round. That happened. But back in the day, this is one of the famous ones. I remember my late mother told me about this one because it was broadcasted here in Chicago. Remember, there was no TNT and True TV broadcasting games separately. It was all on your local CBS affiliate back then. Of course, Bryce Drew and Vanderbilt. They upset Valparaiso, I should say. They upset Ole Miss with his famous shot past half court to beat Ole Miss. That's one of the best moments in first round tournament history. And of course, this anniversary passed last year. This will be year number 21. Bucknell upset Kansas. Remember, that was Bill Self's first year as coach of Kansas. I know a lot of Illini fans were happy that day. And that game took place in OKC.
Yeah, I remember that one too. This one doesn't get a lot of love, but Coppin State upsetting South Carolina. That was the first time at 15 to beat it 2. They also became the first MEAC, of course, before Hampton did it a few years later, but they won that game in that was in Pittsburgh. And of course, some would say that I know Mississippi State, I know they lost in the SEC conference title game. And some people thought that maybe they should have been a 3 seed, but that Coppin State squad, that was the first time that 15 that was only the third time at the time, the other 15 to beat a 2. So that was back in 97, the year before. I remember that Valpo Ole Miss upset. I was a sophomore in high school. I know I'm dating myself here. I was a sophomore in high school. I came in just as that play was happening because I had an early schedule.
I was a junior.
Yeah. I had an early schedule that year. And it was as I was coming home, I turned on the TV in my room, and it was just so happens that play was starting to happen. So I got a chance to see one of the better upsets for that particular time. If you want to talk about like buzzer beaters, if you remember back in 2018, Jordan Poole with that great buzzer beater against Houston. He was at Michigan at the time. Brad Nessler and Steve Lavin had the call of that game. Of course, Houston got to hit your 3 throws in the tournament, unfortunately, and they learned that the hard way. And Poole was able to do the 3-pointer buzzer beater to pull off. It wasn't upset because Michigan was a 3 seed, but that was a really nice play for him in the early rounds.
And I believe this was back in 07 outside Detroit in Auburn Hills, to be exact. Like I said, I'm not on Google right now, but Northwestern State upset Iowa.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah. I remember that one. And that was I know for one question he called him Northwest. I know he said he regretted doing that, but we got what he was saying, because we know that the two teams get played together. But yeah, we forgive you, Okafor. It's fine. Of course, 60 versus 1s. Of course, it happened in recent years. In 2018, UMBC just dominated Virginia, who thankfully they turned around and came back. Ironically, Ryan Odom, who was a coach then, is now coaching Virginia. So talk about irony there. Yeah. So his first year, they had a great year. This year, they could go far in the tournament. I'm talking about Virginia. Of course, a few years later, a couple years ago, Fairleigh Dickinson, another 16 seed being Purdue in 23. In 23, just a few years ago, Zach Edey, and that a lot of those guys are still there from that tournament. Of course, they went to the Final Four that next year. Of course, the early, if you want to do early rounds, St. Pete's over in Kentucky from 22. Of course, Sheen Holloway, of course, who is now at Seton Hall. Doug City, Florida Gulf Coast, upsetting Georgetown. Andy Enfield, of course, leading that group. There as well. Norfolk State upsetting Missouri. I don't remember that Missouri squad. A lot of people thought Mizzou could go to the Final Four that year in 2012. 91. Speaking of Missouri, I know I'm sorry I'm bringing a lot of Missouri. Sorry if our buddy Josh Fryman is listening, but back in 1990,
Mike Berman too.
Yeah, Mike Berman as well. 90, I think it was 90 or 91. I'm not sure, but they were upset by Northern Iowa. Maurice Newby, who hadn't played in like 10 minutes because he was in foul trouble, came in. Shot a 3-pointer. They won that game. Of course, they lost in the next round, but that was one of the better buzzer beater moments, if you will. Of course, George Mason, how they went far. Middle Tennessee upsetting Michigan State in 2016. Sorry, Ryan Field. Sorry about that. Middle Tennessee upsetting them. So yeah, there have been a lot of great upsets and buzzer beaters over the years. I think that's what makes the tournament terrific.
Yeah. And bringing it back here home to Chicago, 2018, Loyola. I know our guy Spiro Diaz was on the call for the first 2 games against the University of Miami and, of course, Tennessee down there in Dallas, Texas. And, of course, shout out to CBS. The pregame show yesterday, they honored Sister Jean, of course, who passed away recently, and Seth Davis who's in the Hall of Fame, Basketball Hall of Fame, the Kirk Galley Award. He wrote a book with her before she passed, so they honored her yesterday. So had to give love to the 2018 Loyal Ramblers of Chicago.
And if you want to go old school, U.S. Reed, that half court buzzer beater, Arkansas beat Louisville that year. So now again, this was before there was only 48 teams at the time, and this is before TNT, True TV, and all that stuff. Because if you remember at the time, those of us here in the Midwest, got stuff like games in the mostly Big Ten games, unfortunately, and. It's good to see that the tournament has evolved. I know some people say like the old way of doing it, but look, I hated having to wait, and then if the games got competitive, okay, you get to watch that. If Duke was blowing out somebody by 30 points or 40 points or whatever, you go to this game. So yeah, I actually like the fact that you get more control now. So I actually like it this way. I know some people say kind of monopolize and stuff, but I prefer it this way. That way, okay, if one game's more, I can go to this one. I can watch this game, on my phone, or this game on my television.
Yeah, instead of being worse. Because remember, LaKeena. Yeah, real quick. I know we got a boogie get up out of here, but remember, real quick. Let's just say if you were here in Illinois, Chicago, and the Illini got blown out. If you were watching in everywhere else outside your region, they would switch from that game. If you were in that local region, you were forced to finish watching that game. That part, it's the only part I hated about that old way back then.
Yeah,
you were stuck watching that till the final buzzer.
Whether we liked it or not. So I like the setup now, so that you can go back and forth. If one game's more, you can go this one. If this one gets out, you can get to go this one. So yeah, I remember that. Oh God, like especially if Illinois or Iowa or Michigan were playing and they were blowing out. Yeah, it was just also 1990, of course. We talked about because we talked about his bio for Old School TV Monday. Of course, Bo Kimball and Paul Westhead led Loyola Marymount. They upset the defending champion Michigan. They got all the way to the edged out by UNLV and Greg Anthony and Anderson Hunt and that group, and Stacey Augman and that group. But really great moments there. Let's see. I know we're missing a few, but from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah,
but,
we gotta wrap it up.
I know, yeah, but of course, Christian Laettner, why I know Rick Pitino. I know he squirms every time after all these years that he didn't get somebody to guard the inbound Grant Hill and the inbounds pass. I know that still makes him squirm. Tate George, 1990, over Eldon Campbell, may he rest in peace, and Clemson. Of course, a couple days later, Christian Laettner actually beat them with a buzzer beater too. So Duke ended up going to the Final Four that year, but yeah, a lot of great moments. I know we're missing some, but I know we'll probably get to it. We'll probably get to it as the next couple of weeks. But those are just some of the other great moments from the March Madness on television.
All right, so for this week, for Old School TV Monday, we took you through a trip down memory lane through the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament from years past. LaKeena, take us home, please, before we get in trouble.
Yeah, before we get in trouble, yes, we gotta get out of here. But yeah, you can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, execute again the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sidney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, execute again the IG.
Yeah, be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And be sure to catch Second City Sports live and in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And if you miss our Selection Sunday special is right there for you. You can catch the replay of that. You can catch replays of not just us, but Sean Sierra Sports, the Smoke Fellows, and so much more of our great content. You can catch it anytime, anywhere on the Sports Chicago specific YouTube channels.
We will provide.
All right, so enjoy all the early first four tournaments games on tap for both tomorrow and Wednesday. Also, I know the women are doing their thing too, so you guys can check that out as well on ESPN's family of networks, and of course NBA. NHL, the World Baseball Classic, if you're into that. Also, spring training baseball as they're finishing up as well. A great time for sports this time of year here in all over the world and here in Chicago and the U.S. So for Sid, these over this way. I'm LaKeena with Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. We'll see you guys on Friday.
Let's go dancing. Holla.